Hey guys, Geoffrey here. In this video, I want to show you what it means when your partner is giving you a lot of mixed signals and how you can respond to this as well. And just to clarify what I mean by mixed signals here, and this is something that I've been getting a lot in the free Facebook group that I have as well, is when your partner is maybe displaying some hot and cold behavior. One day she's saying, I want to do counseling, I want to work on the relationship, and the next day or the next week, she completely flip-flops on that. Or maybe she's saying one thing, she's making some promises here and there, she's stating that she believes in you, etc. one day, but then her actions may not be congruent to whatever she's saying as well. So this puts you in a very confusing question as to where is she really? What is happening and how should I even respond to this? And in case you're new to this channel, my name is Geoffrey and I help men in long-term relationships or in marriages with the right skills, with the right knowledge as well to be able to design a thriving relationship by yourself. So if you want more content on this topic, be sure to subscribe to this channel and also click that bell button as well to be notified when I post new videos every single week. And before I begin this video, I want to let you know that the free masterclass on the 5 proven steps to rebuilding your relationship from the ground up is still open. So if you want to join that masterclass or if you want to submit your application for the Relationships Revival program, be sure to stick around to the very end of this video for the announcement on how you can do both those things. So let's talk about how most people respond when they're getting a lot of mixed signals from their partner. And I call this getting lost in the trees because as you'll see later on in the video, you are getting lost in the trees and you're failing to see the bigger picture of what is happening here. So the first thing that people do usually is they start to blame their partner's character here. So their partner's having some hot and cold behavior. They're saying, oh, she's non-committal. What's wrong with her? Why is she doing this? Why is she so toxic? Whatever it is. And this is what we call the fundamental attribution error bias. So FAE bias. And if you want to watch more on this topic, on the FAE bias, and really this is the #1 killer in relationships is the FAE bias. I want you to watch the video I have above my head or also down below this video. It's crucial that you understand this concept before you move on. But if you understand what the FAE bias is and you understand that when you start to blame your partner's character, that will make you quite impatient, quite confused, quite annoyed as well. Which leads to the second part, which is a lot of people, when they're facing hot and cold behavior, they tend to get quite frustrated internally, or when they're not frustrated, they display the more passive form, which is they get confused, they get flustered. Now, the third thing that people do is they try to overanalyze and over-decode the words that she's saying, thinking that the gem, the truth, is in the thing she's saying. And so they start to overanalyze every single word, every single text, every single thing that she says, and they ask their friends, they ask Facebook groups, they ask YouTube comments and say like, what does it mean when my partner says XYZ? And usually when you try to overanalyze things like this, you also overanalyze things not only with yourself, but also with your partner as well. And that's when you start to ask your partner very logical related questions, very logical statements, and the conversations become very logical for you to find out like, what is the objective truth here? Now, the last thing that people do is then when they try to figure out the ways to ask the questions or the ways to find out the right things to say, they tend to focus on the what. And they tend to focus on the tactics. So if you look at the 3 posts that I showed you earlier, those people, when they were talking about what to do, what to say, they were trying to look for tactics. They're trying to look for what to do, what to say. How do I respond to this? As if there's one response you can make to just totally get your partner out of the funk, get your partner to tell you the truth, and her stopping her hot and cold behavior, mixed signals, whatever it is. But the truth again is that this doesn't exist. So to understand why these responses are quite toxic and unproductive, we need to understand the root reasons behind the mixed messages first. And the first thing we need to understand about this is that people make decisions via emotions. And this is marketing, negotiation, sales 101. And even if people are telling you that they're a logical person and they make decisions via logic and not emotions, the truth is that every single human being makes decisions via their emotions. And this is just human nature in general. And you can't really change that. You can't deny it. This is the fact. So the problem here, when she's giving you mixed signals here, is that logically, I think she still wants to believe in you and the relationship. She still wants to believe in the future, that things can work out, that things can change, that things can be successful again, etc. And the reason why she thinks this is that, if you've been in a long-term relationship over a couple of years, 5 years, 10 years, and married for a long time, there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of memories, there's a lot of nostalgia there as well. And it's often logically very easy to find reasons to stay if you've been in a long-term relationship than finding reasons to leave. So there's a lot of logical reasons that she has of why she should stay, why she should work on the relationship. But the problem is that she doesn't make decisions via logic. She makes decisions via emotions, but her emotions tell her that she can no longer do it emotionally. If she's been in the state of giving you mixed signals, she's probably been trying to save the relationship quite a lot, and often in ways that you may not even be aware of, you may not even understand or be conscious of. But she's been placing her trust and surrender to the relationship and try to work on it for a long time, but every time she does, she gets burned by it. And she can get burned in a very obvious way when, let's say, she tells you something that needs to change about the relationship and you get angry at it, you get defensive, you start to justify yourself, and you don't literally listen to her. But there's also this very subtle way, so you burn her also when, for example, you make a ton of promises of things changing and it doesn't happen, the changes don't happen. And so she believes in the future to say, okay, I'll stay because he's promising a change, but the change never really happens. Or sometimes the passive way that we burn our partner may also be she's expressing to us a concern, a problem with the relationship, with you maybe, and you kind of take it lightly. You dismiss it as if it's not an important thing. It's not an important statement that she's making. And so in both these passive forms, we're not trying to actively suppress her emotions and burn her, but we are doing so usually because we have our own insecurities, our own defense mechanisms that prevent us from truly understanding and truly listening and truly facing our problems head on. And so if this happens, then your partner is in a very difficult catch-22, where logically she wants to believe, but emotionally she just can't. And it puts her in a position here where whatever she does, she kind of loses. If she decides to leave the relationship, then she will experience some incongruence, some cognitive dissonance on the logical side of things. But if she chooses to stay, she will face some cognitive dissonance on the emotional side of things. So either way she steps, there's going to be cognitive dissonance where she can't fully step into that decision in a proper way. And I want you to be compassionate here, right? Because if you find yourself in the same position where you have tried so many times to save the relationship, to trust in the future of the relationship, but nothing happens, nothing changes. In fact, things seem to get worse. And to make it even worse, your partner doesn't even seem to understand her contributions, the way she's breaking down the relationship, the toxic nature of her own behavior. I mean, you would kind of feel the same way. You would feel the same cognitive dissonance, you would feel the same confusion, you would feel the same turmoil, the same war between your logic and your emotions. You would feel the exact same thing. And when you feel that, you would also be giving your partner a lot of mixed signals, a lot of hot and cold behavior. Now, if we understand this, then we need to deeper understand why the 5 common ways that people respond that I showed you earlier can be quite toxic and is not really that productive. So let's look at the first 2 here. The first 2, again, are when you're blaming character and you're falling for the fundamental attribution bias, and that causes you to feel either angry in an active way or in a passive way where you're simply confused, flustered, and not really knowing what to say. So understand here that it doesn't matter if you realize it or not, but for her, in her perspective, there are actually very good reasons behind her emotions. And she might not even understand what the reasons are behind her emotions, but she definitely feels those emotions. Those are the emotions that she's feeling right now. And that's her honest emotions. And number 2, the very fact that she's giving you mixed messages, she's hot and cold, means that there is this internal turmoil going on. And when there is this internal turmoil going on, she's actually trying her very best to use her logic, to talk to herself, to argue with herself in a way, to fight against the emotions that she feels. And when she either goes hot and she's trying to talk to you about something, or when she eventually goes cold, when she's shutting down, both being hot and cold, both talking to you and shutting down from you, those are actually very, very honest expressions of what she's truly and genuinely feeling at that moment. So if you watch a lot of my videos on gaslighting or stonewalling, for example, we often say that, hey, if you are willing and if you're ready, if you're capable of seeing the deeper message behind stonewalling or gaslighting, you can discover something amazing there, right? That stonewalling and gaslighting is not always due to some toxic behavior, some toxic character traits, but it's usually because of the self-preservation issue due to the fact that there's a lack of safety, trust, ability to express. And you feel this yourself, right? We talked about this a lot already, and you feel this yourself when, let's say, someone asks you a question. Let's say you have a bad day at work, and they ask, hey, tell me what's going on. And the first thing you say is, I don't know, I don't want to talk about it. Whether you know it or not, when you do that, that's you stonewalling. And so you have stonewalled and probably gaslit people many, many times. But you don't do it because you have a bad character. You do it because of some circumstantial or situational reasons. It could be that you are saying, I don't want to talk about it because the person you're talking to may be difficult to talk to. You don't think the person can understand. You don't think the person is capable of understanding. Or maybe it's something even more innocent than that. Maybe it's you haven't even understood yourself what the problem is. And the problem could be so complex that when someone asks you what's wrong, you're like, I don't know what's wrong. I don't want to talk about it. This is too much to think about. This is overwhelming. And so when she gets hot on you and she's expressing to you the difficult things, or she gets cold and she's stonewalling you, both these, if you are able and willing to look deeper, they tell you a lot and they give you a lot of opportunities. Now, what happens though, if you fall for the fundamental attribution error and you start to blame her character, so when she stonewalls you, you start to label her as a narcissist, as a toxic person, or when she gaslights you, you do the same thing. My partner is toxic. And you place character labels on her way too early in the process. Or you're just sitting back because you're confused, you're flustered, you don't know what's going on. It shows her that you either cannot, you're not able to, or you choose to not understand her with a compassionate level. And you can show this in a very indirect way because here you're showing that, hey, maybe your understanding of women's emotions or people's emotions, of relationships haven't really grown to the point where you still think your ideas are always right and my ideas are always wrong. And you can also show this in a more intense and a more direct way because when you blame someone's character like this, so when she shuts down and you blame character, then that really shows her that you don't even understand your part in this, your role in this whole breakdown of the relationship, your role of why she's feeling so hopeless. And the worst again is when you blame her for not even trying. Like, oh, you don't try to fix the relationship. Because in her mind, she's like, dude, I'm really trying really hard. So if this is the case, if you show her that you are either not able to or you won't deeply understand her with that compassionate level, then it will just show her that, you know what, maybe my emotional side is correct. Maybe if I trust this, I'm not seeing any signs of things changing. In fact, I'm seeing more signs of me getting burned over and over and over again in the future. So if you do this, yeah, she won't be giving you mixed signals anymore because she's just going to start to walk away from the relationship and pull herself away from you even more. Because now the emotional side is winning. Let's look at, though, the other side of this, where what happens if you try to overanalyze and over-decode words? What happens if you try to use too much of a logical statements or questions and you're too focused on the what to do and the tactics? Why is that toxic? And this is when we fall into the realm of what we call the paradox of logical appeals. And the paradox of logical appeals can come in two forms. So it can come in the form of the paradox of logical questions. And so when we talk about logical questions, it usually sounds like this: when your partner is having this mixed hot and cold behavior and you want to see the truth. And so you sit her down and you ask her the question of like, why did you say this? Why did you say that? Well, why did you do this? What do you mean when you do this? So you're trying to investigate, almost interrogate your partner in a very logical way to make her explain to you in a logical way, what were you thinking? What was happening? Now, the problem with this is that when it comes to emotions, especially in relationships, your partner doesn't often know what the reasons of why she feels the things she feels. But she knows what she feels, but she doesn't understand why she feels those things. And this is not just exclusive to your partner. You also do the same thing, because when it comes to emotions, and especially emotions in relationships, the problems in relationships, the things that contribute to the emotions, they're not just one thing. And they're many things. And these many things are also not stacked neatly on top of one another. They're this web where one thing is interconnected with a million other things. And I mean, I'm sure you can relate to this because, if I talk to a lot of men who are applying for my program and ask them like, what's going on in your relationship? The first thing they will tell me is, I don't know, a million things. Right? Because again, it's not just one thing, but it's a complex web of a million things that are causing the breakdown of the relationship. And so when you look at why you feel hopeless, the first thing you say is usually, I don't even know where to start. And your partner's kind of feeling the same thing too. So you trying to interrogate your partner like this and trying to get her to explain herself to you in a way, it's actually going to make her hopelessness, her sense of dejectedness, even worse. So, if you watch a lot of my videos, I will always talk about the concept of digging deeper, asking more questions, etc. Now, we have to understand that there's logical questions and then there's emotional questions. And the emotional questions are the better questions you want to ask. And so not all questions are built the same here. There's some questions that are better than others. Now, the second way that this paradox can come up is in the paradox of logical statements. The best example that I can give you on this one is, let's say that your partner wants space from you right now, and she's questioning whether she wants to invest herself in the relationship because you've been very controlling in the past. And she doesn't want to be controlled anymore. So you're trying to show your partner here that you are not controlling anymore. So you're saying, hey, I've changed a lot and I'm not controlling anymore. Now, of course, your partner with her very negative confirmation bias will say, I don't believe you. And when she says she doesn't believe you, you start to double down on that. And you say like, wait, you don't believe me. Like, let me tell you all these reasons why I'm not controlling. So your words here are saying that you're not controlling, but you're trying to control your partner into believing that you're not controlling. So when you start to make logical statements like this, you are going to have a very high likelihood that you're going to fall into the paradox of logic like this. And that's very, very dangerous because your actions will speak louder than words. In this case, your actions say that you haven't really changed at all. So with that said, let's spend a minute to talk about how to properly respond to when you're getting mixed signals. How do you respond to that? Now, the first thing I want you to think about is I want you to get out of the trees and see the forest. So your partner is going to be saying a lot of things to you during this part. But I want you to not overanalyze the words that she has and really see the big picture of what is actually happening here. And to see the big picture, I want you to focus on number 2, which is I want you to look within and grow your compassion about what she's really feeling. And what you'll find often is that the root reasons of what she's feeling is always resulted in the lack of emotional safety. It's always resulted in the fact that, like we said earlier, she's in this catch-22 where she's having this emotion versus logic paradox. And all the things that we mentioned before, basically. Understand that whatever she says right now, if she's displaying hot and cold behavior, that's what's happening. And that's what you need to focus on. That's the forest. So don't get lost in whatever she's saying, the mean things she's saying, and don't get sucked into arguing about something that doesn't really matter. When you find this internal place where you can be compassionate, you can be understanding of why she's having this hot and cold behavior, I want you to start asking questions, but these questions should have very clear creative constraints. And I want to spend a minute here talking about the importance of creative constraints when you're asking questions. So I want you to imagine here, if I were to give you 2 challenges, the first challenge I'm going to give you is I'm going to ask, hey, can you draw me a painting? Any painting of anything you want. Now I ask you, okay, draw me a painting of a horse in nature. Me adding some constraints to your realm of creativity in the second example actually makes it easier for you to think of ideas, to be more creative. And this is a phenomenon that happens in life in general, is that, we often think that creativity is when we just leave everything open-ended and we expand the universe of what's possible. That's not creativity. It doesn't actually help people become more creative. If you want to help people become more creative, you have to add some constraints to it. And people can be creative within that constraint. And our brain can process that a lot better. And it's the same thing here. So you asking a very open-ended question like, tell me about this. That's too broad. And your partner will find it very difficult to answer that question. But if you make it too narrow, then it's difficult too. So what we like to do is we do this in 2 stages, where once you understand how to come from this very compassionate place from your partner's perspective, you want to start to paraphrase her in a very deep way. So whenever she shuts down on you and gets cold on you, for example, so one day she wants to do counseling, then the next she doesn't, you can say something like, hey, I think I completely understand how you feel, and thanks again for expressing yourself in this way. You telling me that you don't want to do counseling anymore actually shows me quite a lot about what you're feeling. And if I can understand what you're feeling here is that, you probably tried really hard to save the relationship so many times, to try to work on yourself, to help me change, to accept things about the relationship, to change things about the relationship. But in many ways, you've been burned, either because I don't listen to you. Maybe it's either because I get angry whenever you bring up the tough truths. I promise changes, but I don't change. I don't know. I can name so many reasons. And that probably makes you feel really hopeless. I mean, if I was in that position, I would feel the exact same way. I would feel so hopeless. And I would do the exact same thing as you right now. So that's the part where you paraphrase her deeply, based on you seeing the forest. And then you ask the questions. And the question should be, is that kind of how you feel? And so here, your question is pretty open-ended. But you added a ton of creative constraints to say basically, hey, the response that I want you to give is around this realm, this area right here. So if you start to master asking better questions like this, you'll be very surprised at how much your partner does and can open up as well, and how much clarity you get without it being imposing, controlling, etc. Now, the next thing I want you to focus on also is that when you're trying to ask questions and have this conversation, you have to show what we call controlled compassion. So we talk about the concept of a bulletproof vest a lot in our YouTube videos, even our program. And the common misconception people have about it is that when you're bulletproof, it means that you show no emotion, you're completely stoic and you're a robot. That's actually not true. What we want to do is to show what we call controlled compassion. And controlled compassion is somewhere between you being totally lost on emotions and you being totally stoic. It's somewhere in between the two, where you're in control enough of your emotions to where you're not lost in it. You're not wild in your emotions, but you're still emotionally literate enough and expressive enough, compassionate enough to show the appropriate emotions for that particular conversation, interaction, etc. It's almost like when your kid comes home to you crying because a bully beat them up. You're not going to go there and be a robot and go like, well, toughen up, right? You're going to start to display the proper and appropriate emotion for that conversation. The same thing here. So when you're asking these questions, I want you to use your seeing the forest and your compassion to really get you in a place of controlled compassion. And this is a very difficult state for a lot of my clients to get to. You know, the middle ground is the gray area is always very difficult for people to grasp. But once you grasp this, your micro expressions, your microtones will become a lot more powerful, a lot more effective as well. And again, you'll be very surprised at how genuine you can sound and how much your partner can actually open up. And the last thing here is that I want you to start graduating from asking the what questions into the how questions. Again, the quote that I always tell my clients is that if you have the right process, if you have the right how, then you can thrive under any circumstance. But if you don't have the right how, if you don't have the right process, then you will struggle under any circumstance. So the problem here is that people are always asking the what questions. You know, when it comes to career, what job should I do? What company should I work for? When it comes to relationships, it's like, should I do no contact? Should I contact her? Should I email her? So they're always focusing on the what, the structure of what to do. Now, we also know a lot of people, for example, in the career space, it doesn't matter what company they work for. They're always finding some flaws with it. They're always struggling with it. They're always complaining about it. Because the real question shouldn't be the what. It's not about the what company you work for. It's about the how. Whatever company you work for, how do you work? How do you think? How do you approach the working culture? The same thing in relationships. It's not about whether you do no contact. It's about how you do it, right? So once you get out of the what to do and into the how, that's when we're starting to get to the real answers. And so in this video, for example, I'm going beyond the what and I'm showing you a bit of the how. Now, we can go a lot deeper into the how of how to add creative constraints, how to have better conversations, how to dance in conversations, how to show controlled compassion. But that's going to be too much for just one video. This video is already getting a bit long. So if you want to understand and see how effective this can be, if you learn to execute it the correct way, that if you start to execute it the correct way and you start to appeal to your partner's emotions, you can really stop the hot and cold behavior, the mixed messages, and make the decision very, very easy for your partner. But again, that change needs to be very genuine, and you need to be able to have the ability to really have a conversation that appeals to your partner in a very deep way. And to do that, it requires not just about understanding the how of the frameworks, but also the how of how to manage your internal state, how to remove your internal biases, how to improve your self-esteem, how to shift your identity, etc., etc. So if you want to see just how effective this can become if you do it properly, I want you to watch my client stories who have been, when they joined the program, in very, very dire situations, but they got massive results nonetheless. So if you want to learn more about the processes here, then feel free to join me in my masterclass on the 5 proven steps to rebuilding your relationship from the ground up. In that masterclass, I'll show you the exact process, the exact steps that all my clients have used to gain massive results for themselves. And if you want to submit your application for the Relationships Revival program, you can also do so at the end of that masterclass as well. So if you want to join the masterclass, if you want to submit your application, go ahead and click the link above my head right now. And if you want a free guide that can help you understand how to dance in this conversation better in a way that appeals to our emotions deeply, then you can also download the guide I have for you above my head or also down below this video. And finally, if you want to join a community where you can ask your questions and have a member of my team respond to you, then you can also join me in my free Facebook group down below this video as well. In the meantime, if you found this video helpful and eye-opening, I want you to click the like button. It really helps the channel out. And also subscribe to this channel if you want more content like this one. And in the meantime, feel free to leave a comment below. I would love to hear from you if you have any questions, etc. But for now, I will leave you with these 2 other videos with more skills and knowledge for you to design a thriving relationship for yourself. For now, I will see you in the next video.